The first one, healthcare. And there I would claim a big constraint is just the regulatory environment. What are you allowed to do and what are your liabilities if something goes wrong? The other one I want to mention is transportation. And transportation in the sense of managing infrastructure, but also onboard capabilities. And I think a high-end vehicle already has more software on board than a fighter jet, which is a shocking number, but it seems to be true. And I think that's just the beginning. And a lot of that right now is just in terms of managing the engine or the drivetrain and infotainment. I think there's a huge opportunity also in safety. What you can do, whether it's vehicle-to-vehicle communication or vehicle-to-infrastructure, infrastructure-to vehicle, all that. I think we can do. Technology would allow to do a lot of good things.
That's a good question. Brian, what do you see?
So I see a lot of strange stuff. I'm not kidding. I just had a
But
conversation.
we're talking about big data, right?
Yeah. I just had a conversation about grizzly bears a couple days ago. Okay, so absolutely automotive. But from my startup lens, I have to be careful with that because if you get engaged with the automotive companies, you could grow old and have kids and grandchildren. The automobile is, without a doubt, the most complicated federated sensor platform like out on the planet right now. I've talked to a couple high-end automobile manufacturers, and the amount of stuff that they can get off that vehicle it blow your mind. And they actually, without naming names, there's a couple of them that are sneaking data off through Bluetooth iPhone connections back to corporate because they can't get data out of the dealerships. There's so many value propositions there just from proactive service that it boggles the mind. So it's ripe for massive disruption. I mean, Tesla. Somebody is going to, implement the new service model for cars, and it's going to sort of revolutionize everybody's lives. I hope to see it too. And I actually got started doing vehicles. We actually were doing military vehicles and doing predictive analytics. And we had some algorithms in our platform originally where we could predict with 99% certainty, getting to data science, like when a tank tread was going to come off out in a combat operation. So you move that to the vehicle. There's a lot of things you can do. On that same note, just because it's fascinating to me from a Silicon Valley perspective, there are automotive manufacturers that are toying with the idea, that's my question earlier to you, of offloading all that data into a public place and opening up for people to develop third-party applications around. So here's an example. You would have a crowdsourced weather application that knows how fast windshield wipers are moving as they drive up and down the Tahoe. It gives you a much better proxy for what how bad your drive is actually going to be than the National Weather Service or Caltrans. So it's a huge area for disruption. The area that I'm really interested in right now is we're talking to a lot of companies that make fairly durable, industrial type of goods like in-cap refrigerators, where they're building in for retail environments, where they're building in sensors that'll help them do better marketing. So you do foot traffic detection around like an ice cream refrigerator at the end of your grocery store, and you figure out, do I put Chunky Monkey on top, or do I put it in the middle slot, or do I put it in the bottom? Right, put it on top. Or it might be a Cherry Garcia. So that to me seems ripe for disruption because the value props are all revenue driven, and generally marketing driven, and marketing has all the budget in most corporations these days. So whatever's going to drive more sales is going to do that. So I mean that's what we're starting now to see is a lot of retail focused sensing.
And who's coming to you with that? Are they
Big food companies are going to their suppliers and saying I don't want to name names, but just think of the big food conglomerates that sell a lot of things that you go get at your grocery store. They're driving the people that make fridges for them to build sensors in to get these sorts of value propositions and ROIs out there.
So it's not the retail outlets themselves; it's the
folks
suppliers,
it's the people who are slotting and putting shoes or putting products out there. I don't know if anybody noticed, but years ago Kohl's actually had sensors in the shoe departments, and they were doing dynamic pricing over basically a 900 megahertz network in the store. So depending on how fast the Allen Edmonds shoes were moving that day, they would either lower or raise the price. And that was one of those first years ago. It was one of those first sort of really good ROI things. And ultimately the technology, the hardware was just too expensive to scale it. But that's all changing.
it's a very, I don't usually think about the issue that way. It's a very interesting question. And so this is not a thoughtful answer, but it might be useful. What occurs, I think your question was who deserves to be disrupted, not who's likely to be disrupted.
Well, there's the disruption, as some of the answers were showing in.
Would you give them the mic? Thank you.
I mean, some of the answers were talking about disruption as in verticals, but also within this broad landscape of big data as well as Internet of Things, there are several nodes, cross-cutting nodes, where there's need for disruption. And so these are two questions. I mean, I know it's slightly complicated to answer.
Yeah. What I was thinking is, if you want to think about who's most likely to be disrupted, it's sort of related, right? If you're a disruptor, go after the low-hanging fruit, is my rule. And I think if you watch who's got a lot of data that isn't making use of it, because guaranteed somebody else will figure out how to get to that data or something like it and exploit it at their expense. I think fundamentally that's, I think a thing that keeps us awake at night is if we don't do the best job at helping our customers get insights about the possible insights and business value that they can derive, somebody else will do it. And we can't really afford that. So we have to be on the leading edge of figuring out what useful insights are there and and you're not done, right? Just because you can think of some interesting analytic that your customer can use doesn't mean they can't figure out how to do that someday or hire somebody else to do it. So you have to probably keep rolling out more interesting insights, maybe at a, as I said, maybe at a higher level, multiple assets. How do I optimize all these things going at once instead of just one of them? But I think just watch people who seem to have a lot of data or could have a lot of data but aren't currently exploiting it, and they'll, somebody else will eat their lunch, I think.
That's a good point. If I'll just tack on that for 1 second, since you made a joke of the tomato harvesters. The financial services industry. So on that tomato harvesting note, we actually know which crop varieties are being harvested in real time. It's a much better proxy for commodity prices than LexisNexis data. So that's an industry that obviously pays a fortune for data. And so if you think about wiring the world into a large scale nervous system, it's predictive, real time, what's happening now and what's going to happen.
Yeah, just one thing I'll add real quick is I think one of the disruptive things that I see happening in every industry is mainly like targeted marketing, right? How are you using the data that's coming through? There are probably kind of verticals that probably don't make use of data as much as they can or should, but how is it that they use the data, right, and apply it to kind of different segments of the business for either kind of promoting the product or being more competitive, like so probably in the retail sense, like if large supermarkets kind of there's customers, they walk in, they can easily scan the barcode, probably using like Amazon's price check, and they can probably see where's this product available elsewhere, right? So using kind of the information that they have and giving a targeted marketing to it, which is like promotions, discounts, I think is another area which I'm sure and in different industries they'll use it in different forms, but this is one example where I think is going to kind of move forward.